Caleb, hey buddy. I am recording this for you because I've been thinking about your question regarding the radio business. And I thought it would just be easier to talk to you a little bit about it rather than, doing the text thing, And it kind of gives me an opportunity to test out the new podcasting setup. So thanks, man. Wow, the radio business. To answer your questions, there are positions available, dude. Probably, well, I don't know, in your market, I guess. And by your market, I mean, Georgia and where you live and all of that stuff. But I guess I thought it might be helpful for, me to tell you sort of my experience in radio because I kind of went through all the levels and I thought that maybe it would help me like better illustrate what opportunities are available to you, if you're interested in the industry, which I think is freaking cool that you are, dude. It's it's not working at McDonald's, I'll tell you that much. Every day is different. It's high paced. It's stressful because radio waits for nobody, dude. Sometimes you have to get things done in seconds because time doesn't stop, and radio basically depends on time. I'll give you a few examples in a bit. Let's talk about the jobs that you were asking about, though. So I would divide a radio station into three major components. Those being production, which is where I was, sales, which is what obviously brings the money, and promotions. But all three very, very important aspects of a radio station, and they all three sort of offer their own opportunities for somebody like you. Back in the day, radio was way bigger than it is now, and they would use interns, college students. I don't know if they still do that today. It was starting to trail off when I was in the business, But you wouldn't want an internship, I don't think. I think you want something that's, I'm going off of the assumption that you want something that has a paycheck attached to it. So I'll start with promotions because that's where I did start in radio, was in promotions. I got my first job in radio as a radio promotions tech, which sounds more important than it is. Essentially, I'll tell you this story. There was a guy who lived in my apartment complex. I kind of befriended him. I found out he was a salesperson at a local radio station. It happened to be the rock station, which fits. And as a passing joke one day, I was like, hey, get me a job at K-Bear. And I saw him the next day about the same time. And he told me to be there on Friday at like 1 p.m. or something like that for my interview. He legit scored me an interview. I got the job and I was a promotions tech. What does that mean? That means that I would operate station vehicles, which you've probably seen, whether it be in LA or where you live now. They're usually emblazoned with the radio station name and call sign and whatever gimmick or image they're going for. And you take those vehicles to a location of note, usually something attached to a client promotion. And you've probably seen these guys. If you went to motocross with your dad supercross, or either one, doesn't matter, or any big event, you might have seen these tents there. There's a couple of kids or young people like your age talking to people, handing out like keychain stickers, T-shirts maybe. They might have like a spinning wheel so you could spin for a prize and all that noise. Those guys are promotion techs, or in the business we kind of call them promotion geeks. That's where I started. And, you usually have to have like a driving record check and, all that stuff to make sure you're not going to crash the company vehicles. That's where I started. That's a pretty good place to start. And that first job, that was K-Bear 101 in Salt Lake City. And day-to-day life as a promotions tech, you show up to the station, You figure out where you're going. You pack the vehicle with the necessary stuff. You go there. You interact with people. Sometimes you interact with the DJs themselves because they'll come out and do a broadcast from the field, like at a car dealership that they're trying to promote, or a big event like a basketball game, like I said earlier. Sometimes the personalities will broadcast their part like on location. They call that a remote. So you're the guy who's responsible for setting that up. Does it pay a fortune? Not necessarily, but you got to get your foot in the door just like I did, because I started to befriend a couple of DJs that were responsible for the time segment, the time segment that we call the afternoon drive. And the reason they call it that is because people are driving home in the afternoon from their day at work. So you have the highest likelihood of reaching a big audience in the morning drive and in the afternoon drive. And so these guys were responsible for the afternoon drive. It was a talk show format. I might have told you about this. They called themselves the Freak Show with Mick and Alan. And I befriended those guys. I asked if I could sit in on a broadcast one day just to watch because I was interested in the process. Next thing I know, I'm answering phones for them when a listener would call in. You know, I would just be like, what's your name? What do you have to say? Don't swear. You're going on air. I'd tell Mick what line it's on, and he'd pick it up and off to the races. I'm handling the next call. I had a comment or two on some stuff that they were talking about, and eventually, you know, the mic would get swung my way, and they would, want to know what I had to say about a thing, and then they would go back to their show, and eventually the Freak Show with Mick and Alan became the Freak Show with Mick, Alan, and Colin for a reasonably short time, I guess, because I had to leave Utah for reasons unrelated to radio unexpectedly. I came back to Southern California, and I had to start over. And where did I start? Again, promotions tech. It's the guy that's going to the places to hand out the T-shirts and let people spin the wheel. It's not glamorous, but it's good if you're a people person, and you know that I am. And from there, that was at Coast 103.5 KOSC Coast 103.5 in LA. And I was done being a promotions tech. In the previous job, like I had to inflate like a 40-foot inflatable bear playing an electrical guitar. Like it's kind of like grunt work like that. And I was done with it. So I started to look into the other branch of radio, which was production. Now, again, I was in promotions. I wanted to get into production. I was in bands for years. Recording studios are super expensive, way more than we could afford at the time. So my solution was to learn how to produce audio on my own using the tool that I'm actually using right now to record this for you, which is Adobe Audition. And because of that knowledge producing music, I was able to carry that over into editing. And so I went for a job that was the imaging producer for KTWV 94.7 The Wave. You probably heard that because it's huge in LA. And that was a big jump for me. And the reason that I could make that jump is because I diligently learned the software that was required to make that type of audio. And if you're interested in learning how to do that, of course, there's many videos on YouTube and things like that. But your dad probably could show you the basics, because I know for a fact he knows Adobe Premiere. And if you know Adobe Premiere, you could probably pretty easily understand Adobe Audition. It's what they call a digital audio workstation. It's, at least when I left the radio industry, it was the standard software to use. But you have to keep in mind, brother, I left the industry easily almost 15 years ago. So things might have changed, but it would still get the job done. It's getting the job done right now, right? So if your dad is willing to show that to you, that could be a cool opportunity for you to break into the production side. Production is basically any of the creative and artistic things that are going to go on the airwaves, right? So everything from music or talk, if it's a talk radio station, news, commercials, self-promotion for the station, which is imaging, and that's what I did, and I'll tell you about that in a second. Basically anything that goes on air is a result of the production department. So when I say imaging, imaging refers to any audio that promotes the radio station itself, right? So you heard me sing the Wave jingle. That's imaging. Any type of promotion for a contest, any type of promotion for like what's coming up tomorrow, listen to the morning show tomorrow for this or that or whatever. Those are all called promos, and those are all part of the imaging. And what you're doing is that you're creating the image of the radio station, the image that we want to present, right? So 94.7 The Wave was a smooth jazz, sort of luxurious image. So my job was to make audio that gave that image to our listeners, thereby increasing ratings and things like that.
94.7 The Wave is celebrating 20 years as the smoothest place on radio. Come party with us at the Mercedes-Benz Wave Fest, September 28th and 29th at the Greek Theater, starring Michael McDonald, Patty Austin, India Arie, Ziggy Marley, and many others. Buy your tickets now at 947thewave.com.
The radio station's image, or their brand, is super, super important. It's what gets you coming back. The production department has a whole bunch of job opportunities for you. The promotion thing, you usually can come in as a promotion tech, and then you would get promoted up into like promotions assistant director, things like that. This one is a little more nuanced because there's a lot of people in the production department. So those people would be the music director, the program director. Those are the two big dogs. And then you have the imaging director. That was me. And your commercial production director. These are four big shots, all of whom need assistance. At least they did back in the day. Again, I think these days a lot of those guys will be kind of wearing many of those hats, but they all need help. So for me, I had like 2 or 3 assistants over my radio career with that channel, and they would do things like if you were one of these guys, you would be running papers from one place to the other or following up on emails that aren't getting responded to. So I would ask you like, hey, can you go and see Paul and make sure that he received my email? Because again, radio waits for nobody. So if you don't get a response, sometimes you got to send somebody to make sure that they're paying attention. Going to get coffee, going to get lunch, donuts, whatever, right? These assistant type positions are all throughout the radio station, whether it be in production, sales, or engineering, which I'll get to later. It's basically grunt work. You know, it's like you're a promotions tech, only you don't have to drive the car anywhere or do anything out and about in the world. You kind of work at the radio station and you're just there to do whatever they ask. And again, it doesn't pay super high, but there's a lot of merit to the idea of getting in, like getting your foot in the door so you can do what I did, which is maybe you don't want to get on the air, but you can identify what part of the radio station that you're really interested in and pursue that by making connections, which I think you'd be really good at because you're just a really great young man. You're friendly. Everybody loves you, dude. You would kill it. So in the production side, you can go for assistant's position. Now, technically part of the production side is also the station website. And those guys have usually a team of like 3, 4, 5 people. It might be more now. I don't know. But they got to, they have to populate the website with content like blog posts and promotions. And they're usually streaming a separate stream that they are streaming like for, on the air. There's usually the same type of music, but a different program, which is up to the music director. And that's a whole different thing. Music director is the guy who chooses what music, if it's a music station, goes on the station. So they'll be out searching for music and then choosing that music to see if it fits their audience, right? We're not going to play, Metallica on a smooth jazz station. So the music director also needs assistance. It's a big job. You have to scour all the music in the world. And if you're at all interested in music, that would be a pretty cool job to look for. But the web guys usually need somebody to just write blog content or record content like this that, that enables the radio station to stay relevant. If it's a news station, that's a pretty cool job because you're going to be, expected to keep up with the news, report on the news, things like that. So the web department is a big, I would say it's a small, but it's an important, there we go. It's a small, but it's an important part of, what keeps a radio station relevant in modern times. And then the other thing that I think you might be interested in is engineering. Now, engineering, I don't know if you're a tinkerer or not. I know you're wicked smart, but if you were interested in things like microchips and megahertz and, all this stuff, or like learning how what I do at the radio gets beamed out into space and reaches, in LA, it was probably around 5 million people. I don't know what it's like in Georgia, but the equipment is the same. So our radio station used electronic equipment to beam a wave all the way to the top of Mount Wilson over La Cañada that had a way bigger antenna that amplified the radio waves and sent it hundreds of miles so that everybody could hear it. I don't know, again, if Georgia has radio stations that big, but the engineers are the guys that make that happen. And again, they're important people who need helpers, who need assistance. So they could be working at the radio station if it has its own antenna. If they're relaying to another antenna to amplify the signal, then they could be working off site. But this is the type of job that's going to get you learning connections and everything from, recording equipment like microphones, soundboards, antennas, servers, you name it. If it's equipment related, the engineering department is the people that you go to. These are the guys that keep the radio station running. You could learn a lot in this position. And of all the positions I've mentioned so far, that probably has the highest income potential because it's like being an electrician. Once you know what you know, that knowledge is valuable. So that's all technically part of the production department. Okay, so you have your promotions department, which is responsible for getting the station's visibility out there. That's why they wrap their vehicles in those crazy wraps. Production is responsible for making the actual stuff that gets broadcasted. Music, talk, news, whatever it is, production handles it. And finally, there's the sales department. Now, a lot of people don't necessarily relate radio to sales, but just like any other business, you gotta sell. And what these guys do is they sell time. They sell on-air time. So they'll go to a Toyota dealership or a local ice cream parlor or what have you and tell them that for a certain amount of money, you can put an advertisement on my radio station and, get your name out there. The sales guys are the guys that are responsible for bringing in that business. They need assistance. They need helpers, right? These are the guys that do almost the same thing as the production helpers. Sometimes it's going to get coffee. Sometimes it's processing very, very important paperwork or emails, service requests, taking care of existing clients. Basically, you're just the worker bee, the helper bee for the sales department. Be on the lookout for those positions, dude. Sales department and engineering are the biggest money makers in a radio station. Engineering because of what they know. Sales department is because of what they like, how they sell. So if you found yourself under the wing of a very competent salesperson, you might learn what the trick is at selling airtime in the radio industry. So usually what the sales department does is they sell that time and then they figure out, do you want us to make you an advertisement or do you want to have a separate studio make an advertisement for you and then we'll just put that on the radio. You just email it to us and we put it on the radio. When I was in the business, I was the guy that was making a lot of those commercials if they couldn't afford a studio of their own. Now I am that studio.
The all-new Volvo S80 believes life is the greatest luxury of all, so it's available with two world firsts in preemptive safety technology, a blind spot information system that sees vehicles in your blind spot, and a personal car communicator that can sense an intruder's heartbeat inside your Volvo. The luxurious interior is the essence of Scandinavian design, and the available V8 engine can race from 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. The all-new Volvo S80 starts at $39,400. Visit BayAreaVolvoDealers.com. Volvo for life. Price includes destination. Tax, title, license fees, extra.
So I will produce something like that, and then I'll send it off, and they can put it on their website, put it on the radio, whatever. But it's the sales department that handles that. And if you can get into a good sales department and you learn the craft of selling radio, dude, you could be making bank, dude. You could be making it rain, bro. So that's essentially where I would recommend that you start, is in any one of those departments. Now, you're going to find job openings if you're diligently looking for them. And if you do find them and you're curious about it, I'm happy to let you send it to me or have you send it to me. And if you have any questions, I probably can fill you in pretty good. But a couple of things that you need to know, brother, is my knowledge of the radio industry is a little bit dated, because it's been a while since I've actually been inside the industry and not like a freelance guy that I am now. But I don't know how much damage that would do to the relevance of my knowledge, because I'm going to tell you something that you're inevitably going to hear. This is not meant as discouragement. It's just basically reality. And that is, when I exited the radio business, it was at the beginning of its end. So the traditional radio business that we know, we refer to as terrestrial radio, because it's land-based antennas going to other land-based antennas going to land-based, radio receivers in your car or in your house or wherever you're listening. Terrestrial radio is, frankly speaking, is on the the decline, and it has been for quite a while. And the reason why is because it started with Napster, where, music was coming into people's homes basically for free. Technically, it was illegal, but it wasn't enforced. So everybody was trading music, and the need for, terrestrial traditional radio basically started to see a pretty sharp decline. And then that was basically followed up with iTunes, Pandora, and these days, Spotify, where not only can you pay a nominal fee per month to listen to music commercial free, but the algorithm starts to recognize, the algorithm recognizes your taste and starts to feed you music that it feels like you're going to like. We used to have things called music tests, where a bunch of people would sit in a room with a buzzer with a button on it, and they would play 5 seconds of a song. And if you recognized it or if you liked it, you would click your buzzer, and then they would take that data back to the radio station, and the songs that performed the highest would be the ones that they would put on the radio station. Nowadays, everybody is their own music test. The radio really can't match the algorithms of these other music services. And so a lot of people in the radio business are lamenting the fact that radio is very quickly dying, or at least returning to its original state, which was very utilitarian. Play music if you want to. It went from just one room in the middle of the desert to these giant stations like what I worked at, and they're starting to shrink back down to that one little room again. So like I said before, you're probably going to run into a lot of people that are the production director and the music director, or the marketing director and the promotions manager, or the sales manager and the promotions. You see where I'm going with this? The business is getting small. So if you can find a job, know about those positions, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then if you get that position, as anything, do the best that you can, and you might end up being the guy who is the program director and the music director, or the marketing director and the promotions manager. See what I'm saying? It's a good, fun business to be in. It was not an irregular thing for me to walk out of my studio and accidentally run in. I nearly knocked Sheryl Crow over once because I was in a hurry and I walked around a corner and ran straight into her. She was such a sweetheart about it. I hung out with Queen Latifah. I walked out into the lobby once to hear everybody singing happy birthday to Stevie Wonder, his version of the happy birthday song. I mean, I walked out of my studio once to go see my program director, and I'm not even playing, dude. I have a picture to prove it. There were two legit Oompa Loompas in the hallway, just walking down the hallway, handing candy to people. And I took a picture with the two of them. Legit, like small people dressed up as Oompa Loompas. And that was like a Tuesday. So radio is pretty exciting. And I mentioned walking out into the lobby. That is one more job that I'm going to wrap this up with, which is reception. The receptionist is sort of the face that everybody sees, whether you work there or if you're just coming in. The receptionist handles some of the obvious receptionist things like phone calls or, letting somebody know that somebody is here for their meeting and all that type of stuff. But the receptionist is also traditionally responsible for giving the prize to the prize winner, right? So if you call in the next 20 minutes, you might be in the winnings for a Kid Rock concert, tickets for 2, and then you win it, you got to go to the radio station to go and pick up those 2 tickets. The receptionist is the person that you have to talk to. If that prize is worth, I think what it is, like it's $500 or more, you also have to fill out tax information and stuff like that. The receptionist handles that too, or at least sends that person back to the marketing department to handle that. The receptionist is sort of the gatekeeper, the one that takes care of who gets to come in and who gets to go out. And because radio stations usually have celebrities like disc jockeys and things like that, you have to have an electronic key to get in. So the receptionist is the one who usually has that key if they have determined that you're the one who is allowed to be there. So as you can hear after, 26 minutes and 15 seconds of me rambling on, there are opportunities in the radio business. That's about the extent of the ones that I can think of that would be sort of entry level. I think that you would be 100% capable of handling any of the director positions on any of those things, but that's just not how the business works. Actually, I would say that's probably not how any businesses work. You got to get in on a ground floor. So think about promotions tech, think about production assistant, think about maybe a receptionist position, sales assistant, or, anything peripheral to that. If you could get like an internship with the engineering department, if tinkering with things sounds like it's fun for you, go for it, bro. But you asked me quite poignantly, what jobs are there? Those are the ones that I can think of. If I can think of anything else, I'll text you or call you about it. And likewise, if there's anything that I've said here that you have questions about, dude, you can reach out to me anytime. That's why you reached out to me this time, is because you can reach out to me anytime, dude. Anything for you, bro. So if I can provide any guidance, like if you see something that you like and you want to send it my way, I can probably help you strategize on how best to land an interview. That's really, I don't have much else that I think that I can say. I don't know how I could. I've been talking to you for almost a half an hour. If you stuck around this long, then you must be really interested in being in the radio business. I miss you, dude. I love you very much. I hope this helped, dude. Let me know if you have any questions, okay? Calling out. Peace.
Big Brain.